live from the greatest city ever, the Kingdom of Brooklyn, New York, as Dalton Smith, in a great 5-round fight, knocks out Subriel Matias as a 3-1 underdog to become the new WBC super lightweight champion. This was a hell of a fight to kick off 2026. I think a 5-round instant classic. And yeah, some opinions are split as to who was winning leading up to the fight. The second and fourth rounds to me were swing rounds. You could have had it 3-1 Matias if you gave the second and fourth to Matias, or you could have had it 3-1 Dalton Smith if you gave those 2 rounds to Dalton Smith. I thought the third round was clearly Matias's, the first round clearly Smith's. In the fourth round, Matias outlanded him, I think 32-20, 34-20 by CompuBox or something like that. But he was almost seemed out on his feet. He was hurt at the bell. So if you swung that round to Dalton Smith's favor, I'm fine with that. And then the second round, Dalton Smith outlanded Matias, but Matias sped him up and made him clinch a lot and landed his fair share of punches too. It all winds up being mathematic at the end of the day. I'll just start by saying what it was impressive about Dalton Smith in this fight to me was in rounds 2 or 3 when Matias made it his fight after getting kind of dominated in the opening round. I even think the champion was fighting out of desperation early on, Raheem. He knew in that first round it really didn't go well. And he had a title defense back when he was the IBF champion against Ergashev, undefeated Eastern European fighter, where he had a similar kind of first round that he did against Dalton Smith, but he was very composed. And this was his body language still gave that of confidence that we got this under control. Didn't see that after the opening bell with Dalton Smith. I saw he knew, I'm maybe not as strong as I was for the Alberto Puello fight. Teddy Atlas wisely estimated that fight may take something out of him heading into this title defense. I think he was correct. No disservice to Smith. But the way the body language flipped in this fight was really something to watch. In 2 and 3, Smith starts excessively clinching. He's getting sped up from his normal pace that he's fought at in the 18 fights heading into this fight. And then all of a sudden in the fourth round, he made his mind up and the body language switched. Matias, the pace that he was forcing began to become too much for him. And Dalton Smith seemed to psychologically go to a place that no matter what you hit me with tonight, I'm not going anywhere. You're going to have to kill me. And he started eating the clean head-snapping combinations on the inside of Matias and began to smother his power. And each shot he was starting to hit him with, he was hurting him. And Matias's body was beginning to get weary and limp and was fading before our eyes, even as he was possibly winning rounds. And then eventually in the fifth round where Matias, up until the final crescendo, those big right hands over the top of his low left hand, he was maybe outlanding him. And then he gets knocked out over the top by Dalton Smith's best punch coming in, his right hand. It was a hell of a war. I think the fighting spirit of Dalton Smith was tremendous in this fight. He beat the champion at his own game. And hats off to Dalton Smith, who is obviously a big-time player now at 140. He could sell out arenas in a title defense probably back home in the United Kingdom. But yeah, I mean, Matias came in. This is the second time now Matias has had a homecoming title defense of sorts and lost to a Commonwealth fighter. Just this time, instead of getting kind of outfoxed in an exciting fight against Liam Paro with the educated feet and a southpaw, he gets beat at his own game and knocked out. So big salute to Dalton Smith. What'd you think of the fight, Raheem?
This is a perception extravaganza for me because I love your beautiful breakdown round by round. I don't need to touch it. Let me tell you about what's happening outside the ring. And I am not one who likes to criticize broadcast teams. I do it only when it is absolutely necessary. And I want to be very fair to this broadcast team. I don't think, which some people might say when they see or hear something from a broadcast team, they disagree with it. Oh, they're in the tank or they're, towing the company line or have some other motivation. I think that what can happen is you expect something from a fighter that you've seen before. A guy comes in your mind, has the ability to fight a certain way or weather a certain kind of storm, and you call the fight as if that's what's happening. But to your point, this was not a one-sided fight. Now, granted, the team acknowledged that Dalton Smith won the first round. I thought the first right hand that Dalton Smith hit him with set the tone for the fight. He didn't just fight Matias' fight, he fought both fights. And Matias wasn't ready for that because he didn't stick to fighting on the outside, which he had success with early. That big first right hand landed, let him know, I can hit this guy kind of easily. And winning that first round gave him the kind of internal confidence that this is a fight that I can get. And what the commentators were saying was that almost as if they were just waiting for Matias to knock him out or to turn it on, and as if Dalton wasn't having a close fight or it wasn't an exchange. And part of it, I believe, is a bias of intention. That not that they're intending to be biased, but they have an intention for something to happen, that they and a bias of expectation is a better way to put it. Because they expect something from Matias, they see this happening, even though if you're looking at it 100% objectively, that's not what's happening. There's exchanges going on. I thought you could easily have it, 3-1 for Smith. I thought the fact that, yes, Smith was getting busted up. He's a white guy. You can see the blood. You can see the bruising. And Matias is a smooth black guy. He was getting a little swollen, especially after the fight. You could see the swelling. But in the time, it looked like these punches weren't doing visible damage. But he was getting hit clean and was getting broken down, which is in evidence as that way the fight ended. The fact that they weren't giving Smith credit for the work he was doing or being able to recognize that, I thought the shift in the fight came a lot sooner than the knockout, which is, if you're listening to the commentary, you think the knockout, and this is a quote, came out of nowhere. I think it came out of the last 4 rounds. Like, what do you mean it came out of nowhere? No, it came out of nowhere for you because it's not what you were expecting. And we got to stop watching fights with this expectation. Like, talk about this fighter's history. Talk about why going into the fight you expected him to do this, or why he might be able to weather this storm. But this is a storm, and this is a back and forth fight, and he's not necessarily weathering it just because he hasn't gotten knocked out yet. The commentary would have you believe that Matias was on his way to knocking out Smith, which could have happened, but certainly wasn't evident going to happen. I didn't see him, in even his success, rocking Smith to the point where I can be like, oh, well, this is just a matter of time. No, I saw a very even fight. I saw a fight you could call either way, right down to it. And I, the same as you, saw Smith turn the gear on, and I was looking like, I wasn't shocked when the knockdown came. I was like, he's getting to him. And just because Matias has a poker face, he shouldn't be able to fool the dealers, which is the commentary team. They're just a poker face. He knows how to not show it, but we can see what's happening. And this is partially why I have not picked fights, so that I can limit my natural bias. And this is a lesson that I didn't learn on this Saturday night or rewatching this fight. I learned this early in my career calling fights. Like, oh, I made this mistake calling a James Toney fight because I'd been in the gym with him. I'd watch him spar. I expect James to do this and the other thing. And I found myself calling a fight in a way that is just so differential to Toney because what I expect him to do based on what I saw him do in the sparring sessions. And ultimately, that ain't actually what's happening in the fight. We got to call the action as it is. And I think referees are susceptible to this. Judges, most impactfully and unfortunately, can be susceptible to exactly this, which is why crowd noise makes a difference. But this is why the commentary, who is making the painting the picture for the audience at home, has to be careful not to do this. This is one of those fights you should watch with the sound off, and then watch with the sound on and be like, oh, I see what's happening here. They're watching a fight in their heads that they expected to see and not calling the action in front of them.
Well, yeah. Before we get, well, Corey Erdman and Raul Marquez for sure, from all his years on Showtime Boxing, are two very well deserved, highly respected commentators. So I give them their props there. I mean, Raul had a beautiful breakdown of Crawford Canelo before. He's called a lot of great fights over the years, former world champion. And but your sentiments apparently were echoed quite a bit on social media, which I know you're not on like that. I know you're not on Twitter like that, Raheem, but a lot of people were saying that. Even me having Matias up 3-1 while saying during the live that there was swing rounds in there where you could have it 3-1 the other way. And that's how the judges had it, by the way. 2 or 3 judges had it 3-1 Dalton Smith. 1 judge had it 3-1 Matias, which shows you what kind of fight it was. It was back and forth. I think it was starting to look to script in rounds 2 and 3 when Matias kind of at a desperation early started to push the volume, push the pace. But then I saw in round 4 the momentum switch, and that it was Matias wearing down and Smith getting stronger. And I think you could argue that Matias, this is how I saw it on my live call of the fight, and I do the round by round with the volume off, obviously. I thought Matias was winning battles, but losing the war. I thought, okay, you're speeding up the volume and landing enough on the inside, especially with the 4-3s, the right uppercut, left hook, right. You're snapping this kid's head around, but he's not falling apart. He's getting mad, to quote Burt Young in Rocky 3 when Rocky starts getting. No, he's not losing. He's getting mad, but that's kind of what Dalton Smith was doing. And then I was not surprised at all. I thought it was foreshadowed once he got knocked out in the 5th round. So, but I got to make a joke when you said Matias is a black guy. You remind me of Paul Mooney there, because I know some people in the comments go, "No, Raheem's so ignorant. He's Puerto Rican. He's Puerto Rican, Raheem." Well, it reminds me of Paul Mooney made a joke. He said he was on a plane, right? And he said something about the pilot being a black guy, and they go, "Well, he's Puerto Rican, Paul." And he goes, "Yeah, and I'm Egyptian, bitch." You know, but obviously there's a difference between Subriel Matias Puerto Rican and Mark Anthony Puerto Rican. There's clearly a difference.
Well, let me tell you something. In America, there ain't no difference between Puerto Rican black and foundational black American. If you're not white, you're black. And if you don't know that by now, then God bless you, because you lived a charmed life. What I'm talking about is he's got that skin, that melanin, that ain't blemishing with bruises, and he wasn't cut, so it looked like these punches weren't affecting him until you see him swollen after the fight. If you want to have some kind of culture war, then do that in the comments, but that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the first time I saw Tito Trinidad, I was like, but he's Latino? Isn't that a black guy? Forgive me, people. I was fucking 10 years old, okay? So, but anyway, Boricua.
Melanated. He is a melanated guy. He's got, you know what I mean? Oh my God. Yeah. Let's move on. Like, I'm not even, this is so stupid.
Okay, but back to Dalton Smith. Yeah, I think it was. You could definitely argue it was a case where Matias was winning the battles, but on his way, you could tell from watching the fight as a whole to losing the war, and he lost the war, and a war it was. And Dalton Smith, now I ask you, this is an awesome division, man. It may not have all the way the star power. You got it with Teofimo and Shakur fighting for the lineal and WBO title at the end of the month, but there's nothing but quality amongst the title holders. You got Gary Antoine Russell, who beat Hitchens and beat Boots in the amateurs, and is an excellent champion who looks superb in beating Rayo Valenzuela after he upset Pitbull Cruz. He's the WBA champ. You got Dalton Smith, who's the WBC champ. You got your boy Richardson Hitchens, who's the IBF champion. And then you got Teofimo in the winner of that fight with Shakur as the lineal WBO champion. I love this division. I hope I would like to see Dalton maybe defend his title in a really worthwhile title defense against the former champion Alberto Puello back home in the UK. But I gotta see some mixing and matching of the champions, which we know doesn't happen quite often enough. Where do you think he stacks up amongst the four belt holders right now?
Listen, I first of all want to commend him for going out there to Brooklyn and leaving his region, going out representing the UK, bringing the family, and fighting like his entire life's dream was on the line. It wasn't fanciful or super clever. It was hard grinding boxing, and he made a lot of adjustments in there that might get lost in the analysis because of the knockout, because of the different ways you could perceive the fight. But I liked watching that fight. I enjoyed seeing him fulfill his dream. I wouldn't mind a rematch. I know it's a fifth round stoppage, but I still think that a rematch might be, warranted. I'd line up to see that one again. I'd like to hear, and to be fair, just so you know, which I know you know, that I only watched this fight right before we got on this stream right here. Like, I was in Germany, I was watching Kabial. I didn't get a chance to watch this fight before, so I haven't been on social media. I don't know what everybody else was saying. This is my fresh take. It was fresh because I just seen the fight. But him stacking up against the others in the division, I think there's a lot at play there. Is this one of those nights where the dream comes through, you just wouldn't be denied, and maybe this is a one-off night? Now you got to prove that you can do this again and again. Now you got to prove that this is who you are, not just what you are on the night. I would love to see him stack up against the others in the division, but no one's talking. Am I wrong? I don't know. Is anybody talking about this? I'd actually like to see a rematch. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I have faith in him, but I'd like to see this fight again, and I won't know what we just saw until he gets in there again now as a belt holder and needs to defend it.
Yeah, because efforts like this over the long term tend to not be sustainable. If you have to go to the well like this, and he went to the well, you can only do that but so many times. And if you don't have the skill and everything that goes speed, skill, all the tangibles to make it an easier night on yourself at this level, then you may not last very long at this level. And look at Subriel Matias, who looked like, he's waning, at least in this fight, which again, Teddy Atlas, prognosticated accurately. Matias at 30, you said he was very easy to hit. He's always been very easy to hit. Kind of like when we were talking about Kabiel early. These are pressure fighters whose volume and offense tends to be their defense. He doesn't move his head a whole lot. Once he gets rolling downhill offensively and in a groove, he starts catching and shooting and has a maneuver here and there. He gets into a groove, but he stands very upright. He doesn't really move his head. Again, the guy doesn't bend his knees at all. He comes standing straight up and wears a lot of shots every time he's out there. So at 33 years old, when you're talking about a rematch, I don't know how much more Matias may have left. I'm down for the rematch, and actually I changed my mind. Forget the Alberto Puello fight. The interim champion is Pitbull Cruz. That fight kicks ass. Dalton Smith, Pitbull Cruz kicks ass. I love that fight. That's a hell of a fight.
Done. Make it.
Done. Yeah, done. Matias, go do your thing. But Matias, man, to close on the fight too, man, he got a lot of flack for popping for the PED Ostarine. Fight was still allowed to go on. I guess it was several thresholds below what Ryan popped for with Ostarine for Haney. But still, how did that get in your system when it's an off-the-market substance? Part of me wonders too, because I'm not fully sold on VADA. Sorry. That because I said this on one of our other lives, if you're not a big name or you're not protected as a big name promoter, are you more apt to get popped as opposed to somebody who is a big name or the A side? And he was the A side here, but it wasn't bankrolled by Turkey. Dalton Smith has Eddie Hearn and everything. And, and Matias claimed conspiracy, right? Claimed something like that. I don't necessarily believe that. I just believe you actually got caught and maybe other guys don't. Sorry, that's honestly how I feel. But between that and the gloves not being he had a pair of gloves, Raheem, that he tried to fight with that the commission did not approve first. So people are looking at this guy like he's trying to take any which angle he can to win the fight, by hook or by crook. Any thoughts on that?
Well, he definitely got caught,
Mm-hmm.
and other guys definitely have not. And I believe that a lot of people are juicing that are not caught. And so whenever somebody is caught, I feel like you are playing a game of musical chairs. And when the music stopped, there was just no place for you to sit. I don't know how to change that about the sport. You certainly can't accuse anybody who's got a chair. I am kind of happy that the guy who's in question didn't win, so we don't have to ask those questions about the champion.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I would like to see a rematch where he comes in 100% clean just to put maybe a definitive period on that sentence. And if I'm Dalton Smith, to your point, based on this part of the conversation, I might be like, no effing way I'm giving this guy a rematch. I already beat him on the juice. I'm not giving him a chance to put something in the gloves or to get away with it next time or whatever. I took this fight, because if Dalton had lost or if that knockout had gone the other way, what would we be saying? Right? Is this another Garcia, Devin Haney? Because Smith was physically busted up. If he goes in for another 3 to 6 minutes of that, he's going to look terrible and he might get completely knocked out. And we'd be wondering, where are we looking at this again? The question marks it puts in the sport is awful. And guys wanting that title shot, guys wanting that payday after all the money spent in camp, all the time spent away from the family, all the hopes and dreams pinned on this one night. And then, well, I can either just not take this fight and all that goes away and hope I get another shot, or I can knowingly go up against a guy who definitely at best has question marks, but get my shot. Well, this time it worked out. But it's a damn unfair choice for a fighter to have to make. So in that sense, I'm glad that Smith got this fight. So at least that part of it paid off for him. It is a sport-wide issue. Do not be fooled just because your favorite fighter hasn't been caught yet. It doesn't mean that they're clean. And it also doesn't mean that they're dirty. And we have to treat everybody like they're clean. They're innocent until proven guilty. But believe me and understand what I am saying, that this sport has an epidemic. And I don't know exactly how to fix it unless somehow everybody gets on the same page with year-round, not just in competition, but actual year-round testing, which I know is mad expensive, but we're seeing a lot of very, very expensive things happen, a lot of money thrown away, really, on fights and production and promotion, that the same fights could be made with less. So maybe, if anything, those who have extraordinary wealth and are able to spend it in ways that are extravagant, maybe direct some of that extravagance to cleaning up the sport. Those who have that kind of power could very much affect what I believe to be a cancer in the sport, which is doping. And people being able to get around the systems in multiple ways. That would be a hell of a legacy, to say I'm the guy who cleaned up boxing. Anybody who has the ability to do that, and those people are out there in the sport right now, would make more legacy than any fight they could make or any promotion or location a fight could be at.
Or just go the John Witherspoon route. Again, look up the John Witherspoon on steroids video.
Oh. Did you do this bit before on here?
Yes.
I believe you did.
Yes. So, all right.
I'll throw some out there. I mean, maybe Zuffa, if they're doing this, maybe they can institute something like that. Listen, of course I was being a little coy. You all know what I'm talking about. I feel like any ring show, anybody who's fighting on that platform should be year-round tested. They got the money to do that. if Zuffa wants to win some favor with the fans, with the critics, with bring something to the sport with this new system they're introducing, make that part of it. Anybody who's fighting in our system is year-round tested. Spend that money. Clean the sport up. Give us something transparent about how we can gauge whether or not a fighter is coming in clean or not. That would be a tremendous legacy. You know, I don't know why nobody has grasped and is making that their thing yet.